Hi, everybody, and welcome to our live virtual training today, Practical Strategies for Creating a Welcoming and Supportive Environment for All Youth. I love seeing all the representation here from California to Wisconsin to Florida to Guam. Shout out to Guam. Also some familiar names. Hi, Amiko. I hope you're doing well. So I'm excited to be here with you all today and to be talking about these practical strategies, especially now when we know there's a lot going on in the world, right? From COVID to change to transition and transformation. And so I'm excited. Oh, hi, Amiko. To be here and learn with you. So we want this to be a really shared conversation, although you are all muted, and we're only going to be hearing a few voices from our team. Please do stay active in the chat box. We're checking it. We'll be responding to your comments and thoughts, as well as giving you a chance later to share your voices in smaller breakout groups. So with that, let's introduce our team. On to the next slide. So I'm Lia Cassanego. I'm with ETR, and I am a trainer and TA specialist, specifically around sexual and reproductive health. And next on our list, Lisa, can you introduce yourself?
I'm on mute. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Unti. Nice to see so many familiar names in the chat. I'm part of the training and technical assistance team with RTI and supporting all of you. Nice to see you. And next up is Amanda.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Gaston. I'm from the Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico. My pronouns are she and her. And I am working with the Miami Environmental and Energy Solution as a technical advisor. Always trips me up. Nice to be here.
And this is Mary Oxendine. I work with RTI International. I help coordinate these web events and print materials for the APP project. And my pronouns are she and her.
Hi everybody, my name is Alejandra Enciso Medina. My pronouns are ella, she, her, hers, and I'm with Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County. And I'm a grantee of MCAH for the INE Information and Education Program.
Hi everyone, my name is Xavier Escamilla. I am also from Community Action Commission. I am a health and prevention coordinator from our funder, Maternal, Child, and Adolescent Health Department.
Awesome, thank you everybody. And you'll be hearing from all of us on today's training. So first, some logistics. As y'all may have noticed, y'all muted. We do this to minimize background noise and ensure that everybody can hear and participate fully. If you are having any audio challenges, check your volume, look at your speakers, and then if you really can't figure it out, please do let us know. You can write a message either in a private chat to one of our support people or in the larger chat, and they can find you and try to troubleshoot that for you. If you are comfortable and if it is possible, we encourage you to share your videos. It's always really lovely to see faces in order to connect and engage together. I'm an in-person kind of a training person, so this social distancing has been particularly hard. And I know it can be challenging and a bit uncomfortable for people to share their videos, but you are welcome at any time. So some of the engagement tools we'll be using, we're going to be using the annotation tool, and I know everybody is an expert in Zoom now, but when we get to that, we'll provide some directions if it might be your first time using it. We'll also be doing breakout rooms, like I said, in a little bit to allow you to connect more with your colleagues and just share your thoughts and strategies and really what's happening on the ground. We'll also be using some icons or asking you to use some icons to communicate with us in addition to the chat box. Please do give us a hand clap, or there's a check mark if you agree, raise your hand. If you want to draw attention to yourself and you haven't been getting that attention in the chat box, then we can private message you. There is an X option, but I hope you don't have to use it. And then we have two other, our fun icons, and this is me getting creative, I hope. But our little goldfish, we have that throughout the presentation, and you'll see it in the top right corner of the slide. And that's just indicating we're modeling a strategy and drawing your attention to that. The tic-tac-toe board is also, you'll see that throughout the slides on the presentation, and that's when we're consolidating and putting a list of practical strategies that y'all can use with your youth. And so with that, we'll continue to move on to group agreements. If you've ever been part of a training ever, you know that group agreements are a thing that always happen. And so these are ours today, right? Participate fully, delay distractions. We're gonna honor people's differences and be brave and explore, right? We know that this is a time of intensity and also creativity. So be brave with your thoughts and expressing those thoughts. And if you have any other ideas or things that you would like to add to our group agreement list, please do so now in the chat box. Just give it a mini pause. Okay. I'm going to assume that everybody is cool and consents to these group agreements. If you know how, you can give me just like a check mark that everybody consents, if that's possible. And there, maybe. See some engagement early on, right? We're demoing, we're modeling all the things you can do with your youth. And the check mark is when you click on the participants bottom at the side, you'll see all those icon options for you. Okay. All right, so we can move on. So this is the goal of today's training, right? We really want to be providing practical strategies to grantees and sub-awardees that they can implement with youth to ensure that their programming is welcoming, supportive, and also fostering a safe environment for all youth, whether you're implementing in person or online. Some of the objectives for today are to assess current programming and identify areas for adjustment. We're going to be setting clear expectations for ourselves and for youth to engage with the prep programming. And we're also going to be identifying strategies to promote safe, inclusive environments. So this is our roadmap. So today we're going to look at how we can support and establish safety. And we're going to be connecting that to learning, how setting expectations can be used to ensure predictability, create a community culture, and a sense of shared ownership in the learning process, as well as the importance of fostering inclusivity. Then we're going to hear from the real experts, from Alejandra and Xavier, two of your fellow grantees that are doing this work with youth. And finally, we want to acknowledge the added layer that we're all dealing with right now, right? Which is this shift from in-person to online. So if you're planning or able to be in person, awesome. We're all jealous of you. If you are going to be online or implementing some hybrid, we're going to be looking at and sharing strategies that are going to be a bridge between both, right? From in-person to online or somewhere in between. Okay, next slide. All right, so we want to start off with just a temperature check to see how y'all are doing and where you're at. So on the screen, you're going to see 3 images with different statements. So what I want you to do is take a moment, and if you know how, this is when you're going to use your annotation tool, which is again at the top of your screen under View Options and Annotate, and then you have a choice to click on some icons. So if you can do that, you can find whatever icon you want and then click it under the statement that most identify. Oh, we got a star. Good. People are out there and listening to me. And click on the image or the icon that resonates with you. If you don't have that annotate option, or you want to use the chat box instead, you'll see each statement also corresponds to a number, 1, 2, and 3, and you can put that number in the chat box now. Okay, great. So we have some people still trying to figure out where to start. We got a lot of distancing is hard, but I have support. There's some people on the lines. And also, I'm cool and collected and I got this. Oh, I like it. All right, so keep on, everybody. Find an icon you like and throw it on the screen. Great. We got some 2s and some 3s I see in the chat box. Some 3s, some 2s. A 1, 2, yeah, we're on the line. That's okay. All right. Give it a moment to help answers keep coming at 1, 2, and 3. We're all over the place, right? That's 2020. I feel that way. I'm often like, Lisa, what day is it? What are we doing? Okay. Oh, I'm loving all these hearts. I don't know if it's the same person just putting all the hearts. I'm calm, cool, and collected, and I'm hoping it's individuals. Great. Oh, 1, 2, and 3. All right. So I'm loving that we have some people already to 3, that you are calm, cool, and collected. I want to be like you. And also we have some people in the middle, right? And we're having maybe some challenges, and also we have a lot of support. And for my people that are in my 1s, that's totally fine and normal too. It's a lot. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've been having with people across the country and in different places where there are a lot of questions we're currently asking ourselves as we're thinking through how to best support our youth and how to best plan, right? Especially when we know we can plan all we want, and then that can go out the window in a couple of weeks, right? So it's not only planning, but it's planning for change and planning for the unknown. So I hope that today, as we move through the content, we'll shift a couple people to maybe if you're not feeling calm, cool, and collected, and you're not sitting on that beach drinking whatever favorite bevy you want, we'll at least get you to a place where you know where to start, right? And know that you have resources to begin this journey. Starting with everybody on this call and our training team, right? Like this is a community, this is a resource. So thank you for all participating, and I'm glad everybody used the icons because I think that's always fun. All right, so moving on. Then we can clear all of the icons, or we're just gonna have a really pretty presentation throughout. There we go, this entire training. Hearts for everybody. Okay, so something else that we built into this training, you'll see at the end of each section, a slide with highlighting wellness moments. With a lot going on, taking care of ourselves and also thinking about wellness can become the absolute bottom of the list, right? So we wanted to, really do what we say as health professionals and begin to highlight that these are things we can be doing to take care of ourselves, and also things that we can be sharing with our youth to help them and support them learn the skills to take care of themselves as well. So we have some journals. So each slide will have different strategies throughout the training for you to highlight. And now before we dive into our first section, if you are comfortable and able, I would like everybody to just take some deep, soothing breaths with me. If you want, you can close your eyes, but everybody just deeply inhale and exhale. Again, deep breath. One more time. All right, so thank you for taking a moment with me. I hope that helps you feel a little bit more calm, centered, and grounded. I know that helped my heart rate slow down a little bit, because even though I public speak for a living, you always get a little nervous. So now I'm feeling more calm. I hope you're feeling more calm. And I'm going to hand it over to Amanda to walk us through our next section.
Thank you, Leah. I think I should always request to be prepped with someone doing a deep breathing exercise before it's my turn to present. That was awesome. Well, thank you again for those really great and practical strategies that we can then take to the youth that we're working with in both virtual and physical spaces. So next, we're going to talk about establishing safety and why that is vital to both use virtual and physical learning spaces. We can go to the next slide. So the reason that we start with safety is that we know that learning cannot take place without it.
If you all can bear with us a moment, I believe we had Amanda freeze.
Okay, looks like for a second we might have lost Amanda. That's okay. We're gonna see if she's gonna hop back on. But until she does, I will continue to talk to all of you. So we're gonna start, people are gonna be tired of my voice by the end of this. So we're gonna start with, why do we start with safety? And we start with safety because really safety it's foundational to learning, right? In order to be open to learning, in order to engage our minds and our memories, we need to first have some basic needs met. And safety really is one of those. Next slide. Okay, so making the connection, right? So how does this connect to us? First, we really want to acknowledge that there are absolute limitations, right, to what we as an educator can do to help our youth feel safe and supported. And that's going to now look differently when we physically have them in class with us and also in a supportive school system for really many hours of the day, right? There is inherently more control over the physical environment, opposed to us meeting them in different virtual spaces where they can be. But we can still play a really large role in supporting them how we can, in order to ensure that we're doing everything we can to check in and ensure that they're feeling supported, and acknowledging that we're thinking about them and their continued safety even through this transition of change. Next slide. Okay. So when we talk about safety, we're thinking about safety really in 4 different types, right? I know often when we think about this topic, we go straight to physical safety, which is obviously very important. And also, we can define safety in these other ways as well, from emotional safety to social safety to predictability. So we really begin thinking about safety in these larger buckets, which then does open up our opportunity to be supporting youth. If we go beyond just, are they physically safe, and thinking about their emotional, social, and predictability, we can absolutely have touch points on those other 3. Next, I'm gonna see if Amanda is back because
I don't see her back online yet.
we do not see her back online. And I'm gonna move through this slide. While native wellness model is deeply important, it is nowhere near my area of expertise. And so when Amanda jumps back on, I wanna say we will come back to this so that she is able to share this with you all. And I appreciate your understanding and continued patience. So we can move on. All right. So what are some things I mean when I am talking about physical, social, emotional, and predictability? So again, right, physical safety is we are free from physical harm. There are clear safety procedures in place in order to ensure that. I don't know, a really easy one that I think of in the school system is like a fire alarm goes off, right? So there's something clear in place in order to handle our safety. We know when we hear that sound, we are getting to another place where we can be safe. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So I apologize for that. The next is emotional safety. And so this really ties into our own ability and supporting the youth's ability to build the emotional self-management skills for themselves. So number 3 would be social safety. And again, it's fostering safe and healthy relationships and really going beyond that to prevent victimization and abuses of power. And finally, predictability really focuses on setting clear routines and rituals, clear expectations, and consistent responses to support the youth. And so we're really going to be narrowing in on the next section, some of those routines that we can set, the expectations that we can set, and that like consistency in our responses that are really crucial to ensuring a safe, inclusive, and welcoming learning environment. Can move on. And again, I'm going to wait for Amanda to come back to talk about the native wellness model. Okay, so what more can we do, right? We need to be approachable. We need to build rapport, acknowledge these experiences and cultures, and empower their voices. We need to be accountable in our words and our actions, and making sure those all align. And we also need to be a really clear resource, right? And make sure that what we're sharing with youth is always factual, unbiased, and inclusive, right? And this can look a variety of different ways. And again, all of that's going to really be impacted by your resources and your touch points with youth, right? There's a difference if you are the consistent educator in a classroom with them and you're teaching more than just sexual health education, right? Or if you are some sort of other agency being contacted to come in and just meet with you, right? The relationship is different. Your ability to connect with youth, right? These things look differently. I know I also was talking to another agency where they were saying, because of everything, they're now reduced to 2 staff and they're serving like 1,500 youth, right? So again, that's gonna look different than if you have a larger staff and fewer youth that you're gonna be engaging with. Moving on.
I'm so sorry, Leah.
That's okay, Amanda.
I got kicked off. That's the first time that's ever happened to me.
I got you. I didn't do it as well as you, but I got you.
Oh my, yeah.
Let me come back here. I didn't cover the native wellness model. Would you?
Sure, yeah, I can jump in there. Thank you. Yeah, just was saying Zoom was not connecting, and it's like, but I have Wi-Fi, I don't understand. But yeah, I know there were Zoom troubles like last week too, and yeah, across the East Coast, and so I thought that was it. But thank you for stepping in. Yeah, so it sounds like Leah covered the 4 different types of safety, which we know or have probably seen in a model that's similar to this native wellness model, in that it's a secular type of model that shows that they're interconnected and dependent on each other. So we just wanted to highlight here that there might be different types of wellness models that youth are coming to their learning spaces with. And essentially, this wellness model is inclusive of all of those 4 other safety domains, but it includes the spiritual element. And so that description is basically that the better connected we are to the world and our creator, the better we can connect to the feeling of being a part of something bigger, larger than ourselves. And just a quick side note about this wellness model too, you'll see that this uses a medicine wheel, which not all tribes use. My tribe in particular doesn't use the medicine wheel, but this is, you know, kind of, there are different versions, but one of the better versions that are out there. I do work with the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board, and we're currently working to create a better model that's more inclusive for folks across Indian country and Alaska as well. And so when we think about these strategies weaving into maybe the Western models that we know, if we think about Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, if you think about being deliberate about incorporating the naturalistic intelligence, you'll be off to a really good start with making sure that your bases are covered. Okay, so I think then, Mary, we'll skip back down to where Lia left off, which, yes, is this slide here. So sorry, I might be missing a few pieces here. But before we continue, we want to do an activity with folks. And we want to take just a moment to reflect on what each of us is currently doing to help youth feel safe in their learning environments. So if you had that scratch piece of paper out, I think Lisa had typed that into the chat feed. If you have one beside me, or beside you, a tablet or any piece of paper, and share a couple things that you're doing currently within each of these modes of safety for youth, either in your virtual or physical spaces, or how you plan to use these strategies. So we'll take just a second here to let you guys get your papers out. If I were doing this, which actually I think I will do it with you, I might just draw a table and have these 5 different sections. And then I might write one word or draw a picture of something I'm doing for each of these safety domains. So we'll give folks just a little bit of time here. And then something to think about too while we're starting this process of reflection, and we may have an opportunity to do it after the call or in our future planning, thinking about how this might cross over to what we're doing. So you might be doing a hybrid. If you're only doing virtually, maybe think about how this might look in physical spaces or vice versa. So how might this look different in person compared to online? And as you start to brainstorm, thank you for typing that into the chat feed. Yes, we can start typing that into the chat feed and we can have a side conversation going as we kind of work through the next few slides. So being mindful of using inclusive language, it's a great example. Inclusive language, I love it. Having extra staff on chat to answer private messages, that's a great example. Consistently having Zoom sessions, reminding students that they can step away from the screen, yep, if they're not comfortable. Ask students to write their pronouns with their names if they wish. Yeah, and we had this conversation too before. I introduced myself using my pronouns, but also creating the space for youth to not have to do that. So, you know, I use my pronouns. If you feel comfortable using your pronouns, please do. But yeah, giving the opt-out for sure. Setting clear expectations, mindful exercises. The emoji check-in is always fun. Yep, the annotation tool. Chatting on Snapchat, sending lots of resources. Awesome. So I'm going to encourage folks, yep, sharing stories, to continue to type in the chat feed. During our breakout sessions, your reflections here are going to be really helpful during that time. Acknowledging a difference in diversity. Awesome. Okay, so how might this look different compared to in-person or online? Okay, so Mary, I'll have you move to the next slide. Singing bowls or other meditation tools. I love that, Nikki. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, and continue to type that into your examples into the chat feed. So just looking at those safety domains again. So some examples for the physical safety, and somebody typed this into the chat feed already, so that's really awesome. So ensuring that your platform is secure. If youth are able to use headphones, maybe something that, or that is something that can be given in care packages ahead of time, prep packages ahead of time, maybe putting a towel underneath the door so that they can have a little bit of privacy, especially if they're in generational homes. Talking with the parents or the caring adults, having proactive communication. And then in those physical spaces, making sure that there is caring physical distance. So if you're able to put posters up on the wall that maybe show what your class might look like if you're safely physically distancing, that can be a type of safety that you're helping youth to feel secure about. Emotional, so modeling self-care. Just as Leah showed us how to do earlier, making sure that you're incorporating these deep breathing, that you're actually participating, because then that shows youth that that's something that you value in your self-care as well. Saying nice things to yourself so that youth can hear you saying positive things, positive language about yourself. So building up these wellness moments into your class and in-person or physical, in-person or online spaces. And then if it's possible to limit your group size, I know that that's not always something that is translated into reality, but if you have choice and you're able to create smaller spaces, that gives youth an opportunity to be a little bit more vulnerable and perhaps willing to take some healthy risks as well. And then encouraging your any mental health professionals, prevention specialists to your calls so that youth can make the connection and see those faces. So perhaps if they're needing telehealth, any counseling sessions, then they're able to say, oh, like I remember her. She was on one of our calls and she introduced herself and she seemed pretty cool. So making sure that you're incorporating that as well. And Mary, we can move to the next slide, please. Sorry, I have my 5-year-old in here. So then looking at the other safety modalities. So
Dad was surfing one time.
I know Dad's surfing, baby. Okay.
No, wait. He's not surfing right now.
Sorry, big excitement. We saw a manatee outside. So the social piece. So just as we did at the very beginning, making sure that we're establishing agreements and addressing it when they're broken. So if there's, private chats that are happening on the side, we want to make sure that we're creating spaces where there isn't bullying happening. Sometimes, this has happened in some of our calls where we had the private chat feature open for youth. And by accident, one of the youth had messaged one of the facilitators a really awful and bullying message. So we wouldn't have caught that, and we really wouldn't have known that, oh my, maybe we should really think about having this feature open to youth. So thinking about those things ahead of time. building in opportunities to make space for their own, either that be in person or online, providing multiple ways to engage, chatting in various ways. So we had some Snapchat examples in there. And then making sure that, as we started at the beginning, that there are very clear expectations. So the things that are expected from me, the things that are expected from youth. And you can use, your annotated tool, or you can use the whiteboard feature on Zoom where youth sign those agreements. And then again, the spirituality piece. So modeling how you can make connections to the environment and something greater than yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are going to open this up for any questions. So feel free to ask away. And all of our presenters will be available too. So Mary, the slides I think are usually provided after the session.
So this is Ed from Salt Lake City. And for the spiritual piece, this is more telling you that what we are able to do, because all our participants are American Indian. We like to burn sage at the beginning of classes. But if it is in a virtual format, our approach would be actually to give them sweetgrass or sage delivered to their houses, so that we can actually do it together at the beginning of our sessions. I think that could actually work. And I
love that.
It's effective at creating that spiritual space as well.
And Ed, we've done virtual smudging in some of our sessions as well. And you might think that that might not work so well, but it actually is really lovely, just like the breathing exercise as well. We've had either an elder, we have youth lead the beginning blessings and the closeouts as well, but they'll start with the sage and the sweetgrass, and we'll say just a little blessing before that just clears the space and gets everybody prepared to share in positive ways.
Yeah, so for me, being involved in smudging and things like that, an important element is the smell. So if we actually give them the sage themselves that they can burn at the same time, then that smell or that fragrance is also part of their own space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And that could be one of the things if you have packages that go to youth ahead of time. I've seen little travel medicine bags that facilitators and youth put together for others.
Mm-hmm.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
And Leah or Mary, if you want to prompt us, I'm not sure who's keeping track of time. Okay, so Mary will move to the next slide, please. And so this is just a moment, again, to model a skill for folks. So if we're practicing mindfulness, the one that's in bold here, right now, something that we can do and something that we can model to youth is, if you have your scratch piece of paper, you can just do some doodles or do some drawings. We know that there's a very strong connection with attentiveness and retention when your wrist is moving. So you can encourage folks youth while they're on their screen virtual lessons, or even within your physical spaces, to just doodle. Especially if it's during lecture, something like that. And Lisa says, yes, please doodle now. And that also speaks to screen fatigue and then eye strength. So making sure that you're focusing on different points within the room as well. Okay, next slide, please. And I will pass this back to Leah.
All right, I'm back. All right, so our next section is focusing on expectations. And so we're really linking this back and wanted to highlight this and to talk more about this and predictability, because this feels like, at least in this context, in this environment, this might be some low-hanging fruit for all of you. So next slide. So when we talk about expectations, we're really talking about expectations for yourself, right, as the educator. And these should, of course, be shared with the young people that you're working with, for the youth that you're working with, and this is as a group. So what are some expectations you have for them as a group and for them as individuals? Again, to really reinforce that shared learning process. So as a group, you all will be kind, will be respectful. And then as an individual, what does that mean, right? So no bullying, no private chats, like everything that was Amanda was saying. So really connecting the community to the person. And then also expectations for your parents or other caregiving adults and community members that are also involved in the learning process. Next slide. Okay, so we wanted to start with a prompt for this section. So then what is the context, or what are the challenges that your youth or potential other caregivers or caring adults or educators, what are they facing right now related to how they will be able to show up to learn? So what's some context or some challenges that we're all facing as we move into the school year? And you can just share in the chat box. The Zoom group chat, I guess, is its official name. Access to food, yeah. Focusing virtually, yes. I am always very surprised when I have a day full of Zoom meetings, how exhausted I am afterwards. Babysitting siblings, yes, right? We know that different families have different access to different supports, and especially now with all these young people at home, I mean, people that are caregiving for younger humans are all of my heroes right now. I do not know the strength, the grace, the patience, the energy, and also just the time management that is going into all of those things. In addition to like raising a really nice, productive human, these are just superpowers. Internet access, absolutely, right? Internet access, it's not a universal, and especially for you all that are potentially working in more rural environments, the young people just might not have access to any internet or consistent internet. Privacy, yeah, so privacy, physical privacy, either in a room or a space to learn, or technological privacy, right? Do they have a personal laptop or tablet? Or do they have a private account if it's a shared device? Thinking about the different age groups that you might all be working with. Yeah, like self-paced education versus live, and making that engaging. Just a lack of support, right? This has been such a shift. A lot of us are not only facing real challenges related to just resources in general, and then we're being asked on fewer resources to even provide more engagement, more support, and more touch points, which can create a lot of challenges. And not being able to be, yeah, with friends, right? We're really missing that social and that communal aspect right now. I know I am missing it, and I can only imagine what young people are feeling, right? With prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, managing those emotions when I'm struggling to talk myself through it. And yeah, lack of structure and kind of reestablishing those, as we're talking about routines, right? And some structure around your day. Absolutely. So we're going to keep on putting them in the chat box, and I'm just going to move us right along. You all are highlighting awesome things. So what you all are highlighting is that context matters, and it matters when it comes to safety, predictability, expectations, and it's also going to factor in and impact the experiences we're all having, from yourself to your colleagues, to your youth, to their parents or trusting adults. And all of that is going to feed into this school year. Next slide. So we've broken this down to think about the community, the youth, and then also parents. So first, just starting with the community. And again, you all have highlighted this beautifully, so I'm not going to belabor the point, right? But COVID-19 is still a thing. I think all of us, at least I did in March, everybody's like, all right, we're going to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then, you know, it's over. And we all know now that that's not true. So it's still a thing. We also know that communities can respond and react to these forces differently based upon their identity, their culture, their resilience. Available resources like community centers, parks, outdoor spaces, sports and clubs. For those of us in California this past week, I mean, I think the outdoor and parks was really hit home. If you have not seen, California was basically on fire and still is. And so we were impacted, not only a lot of people physically having to leave their homes, but also our air quality. So then if you even weren't in an immediate evacuation zone, we couldn't go outside for our health and safety, and just seeing how much that impacts our emotional, social, and mental health, at least for me, it was really stark, and it really kind of drove that home. We also know that different people are experiencing unemployment, food insecurity, and just basic needs, right, from housing and physical safety, as well as generational or historical trauma. And since we all work in sexual health education, layered on top of it is just the acceptance in your community or your space or your school of sexual and reproductive health education in general and as a whole. Moving on. Okay. What was one more thing I wanted to say? Okay. So now moving on to our parents, or again, caregiving adults. And I know I keep on repeating myself because I really want to hit home. It's not just parents, it's also caregiving or supportive adults. So moving forward, maybe I'll just say like caring adults, and y'all can like insert here what that means to you and your youth. So again, everything we mentioned in the community context. And I will also add for support, right? An extra layer if you're working online, depending on the support of the parent around the education y'all are providing. The parent could literally be present while the youth is on with you if they're not in a space, and or literally present if you're doing self-paced while providing while the youth is engaging with the homework, right? So before, if you're talking about or answering sexual health questions in school, right, there's more control there. Now alone, the belief of the parent and support of the parent is going to be more present in the education process, which is a factor we need to keep in mind. Also, we know that this is a time of stress and uncertainty. And so we do want to highlight that, unfortunately, this may increase either abuse or neglect that might be happening in the home or outside of the home. And often educators are the front lines of noticing this and being advocates for our young people, because they're the ones, they're checking in, they're noticing behavior changes, right? They're physically seeing what's happening with the young person they have a relationship with. And this can become harder to be that front line of support if, again, we're engaging with them virtually. And it's still very, very important any way we can to have those touch points in their check-ins. As many of you noted, y'all were talking about Snapchat, which is like, you're super cool. And, you know, having phone calls or text conversations, all of these things, really important. So our next slide. Next slide. Yeah, context, youth. Okay. And y'all already highlighted on the basic needs, right? And then also access to technology. And I think we covered, just making sure we covered all of the points, because I think we already did, because y'all are awesome. Right, and schedules. And one of you already brought it up, right? Potentially a young person could also be responsible for taking care or supporting a sibling or a younger sibling, right? From not only caring for them, but also with their schoolwork, because they too are home, right? So it's an added layer that is going to be impacting your young people. And then with that, Speaking of schedules, we wanted to launch a poll and get a sense of your all schedules to see when's the best time for all of us to engage. So you all should see now a poll on the screen. If you could just take a moment to answer that question about what time frames are generally work best for your schedule to attend web-based trainings. And this is an East Coast time. Looks like a tight race between 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and then 2 to 4. Okay. See if we can get close to 100%. We're modeling voting. It is an election year, right? Voting is important. 70%. Give it another few seconds. Okay. Looks like we may have had a hard stop at 75%. Still good, still good. Okay. The results are in and we got 2 to 4 p.m. So thank you for engaging in that. This team and RTI, again, just wants to make sure we are supporting you all and creating times where you can actually join us to learn. So thinking about all these questions and the context and the context that we're all existing in, we want to think about how do we answer these questions, and more specifically, what has been going on in the lives of our youth since we saw them in either March or April. Right? That's a big chunk of time that has passed since we all went on break or transitioned fully to online learning. Next slide. So here are some strategies that we can do to check in with all of our youth. And again, this depends on how many staff you have compared to how many youth you have. So if you're that one educator and you have 1,000 staff, maybe setting up individual phone calls is just like not going to be something you can just physically do, and that's totally okay. If you can set up phone check-ins or video check-ins or whatever that is, that's wonderful. Other options would be having a short questionnaire or a survey that you can either launch, or a poll, right, that you can either send out by email, old school, or I don't know if you have an Instagram or a TikTok. I'm already showing my age because I don't know all of these things. That's one way to reach people. We also want to note it's great if you can connect, again, not only with the youth with some questionnaires to check in how they're doing, but again, the parents. Because if you are online, you really need to be engaging parents. And then during implementation, those temperature checks, like y'all were saying, like an emoji or a thumbs up, or even like we did at the beginning, what image or icon do you resonate with? Or, choose a virtual background that really speaks to how you're feeling today, right? Are you in the Aurora Borealis? Are you in outer space? Are you in a post-apocalyptic world? That was like how us in California were feeling earlier in the week. Whatever it is, a temperature check just to see where they're at, again, if you're doing live sessions, or you can think of a creative way if you're doing asynchronous or self-paced. Next. Where am I on time? So this is a problem, I can just talk forever. Here's some sample questions that you could provide. Here's one for parents, right? So what types of resources might you find helpful in the next 3 months? Again, really targeting in on some of those more specific needs. To youth, what's the best way to connect with you, right? And next, move through this more quickly. Okay, so now we're getting to sharing expectations, and we really want to highlight that you should be sharing expectations that the youth can then have of you first and foremost, right? So we want to be modeling the behavior. It's also establishing equity and trust right from the beginning. If I can say to them, okay, this is what we have going on, this is our plan, this is our path, and this is what you can expect of me. I'm gonna, show up on time. I'm gonna answer your questions honestly. I'm going to be a continued, non-biased resource for you, and I'm going to be your advocate, right? Whatever those is, we start first with ourselves, and then we move on to youth. Next slide. Here are some examples, right? And again, you'll notice there can and is overlap between group agreements like we did in the beginning and expectations. These conversations can happen jointly or separately. Next slide. And then, oh, this is continued for youth, a couple more. And we will be sending out these slides, never fear. And then finally, again, you want to be connecting with and having expectations for parents or caregivers, and you want to be sharing the expectations you have or agreed to with the parents with the young person, right? Really getting those parents on board, right? I want your youth to be in a safe space, right? This is what we're going to be going over, and the information we're covering is whatever your, oh man, I'm totally blanking. That letter, the notification letter that you send home to parents when you go over everything that you'll be covering and to get agreement. Next slide. Okay, any questions? And maybe we'll just save them. If you have, keep putting them in the chat box, but I'm going to keep going because we are going to have a Q&A at the end of this. And I want to make sure you hear from Alejandra and Xavier most of the time because they're really awesome. Okay, here's our next wellness moment. You can read on the slide what we have here. And then we've highlighted just positive self-statements, right? So things like, I am resilient. I can do this, right? Whatever it is. I know I'm one of those humans that talks to themselves, and so I probably do this more often than not. I learned it's like a real word about that, if you talk out loud to yourself. But what do you say to help you through the day, right? How do we reframe, and also how do we change that internal dialogue from I can't to I can? Next slide. Thanks, Nikki, that makes me feel better. All right, fostering inclusivity. Next slide. So when we're thinking about inclusivity, we should be, if possible, really looking at it through each of these layers, right? So from community to parents, caregivers, elders. So kind of this like broader, larger context of inclusivity, and then at the school level, right? Inclusive policies, practices, representation. And then in our group settings or our classes, we really want to make sure we're having inclusive images in all of our slide decks and our PowerPoints, right? We want to make sure that people, it's representative of the range of humans and values. We want to make sure we're having diverse examples and also mirroring that in our group agreements. And then also at the individual level, having positive and healthy relationships, not only between adults and youth, but also supporting those relationships among peers. Next slide. All right. So we want to be modeling positive and affirming language that's non-shaming. So a quick example of this is the difference between using consequences and outcomes. And I really love this shift because consequences has a really strong negative connotation. And I think especially in sex ed, it has a strong negative connotation, and it's linked to all sexual activity and behavior. And we know young people become adults. And so we want to be modeling that outcomes that can be both positive and negative, and deepening that thought process for young people to make sure they're protecting themselves right now, but also thinking about kind of the range of possibilities, right? When something occurs. It's also just more inclusive and reflective of the real world. Second, we want to actively destigmatize behaviors and identities. We know that not all sexual activity is consensual. When discussing STIs, we don't just want to focus on protection. We also want to support and focus support young people and talk about the importance of testing or just engaging as they get older in a positive way in the healthcare system. We want to be sharing our pronouns, creating a space for youth to do the same, again, if they're comfortable, like Amanda noted, and never requiring it, but normalizing the very act by doing it. And again, like we said, or Amanda's example of a bullying comment, if we see something or hear something, whether it's in person or online, we need to intervene and we need to say something. Working with educators, I know it can sometimes be hard when you overhear a youth to kind of step in and always say something. So sometimes if you don't know what to do, the response is to not do anything, right? And we know that that can send a really clear message if we don't engage. That lack of response. So we always want to make sure we are responding, we are engaging, we're naming things when they are not okay, and we're modeling that we believe, right, everybody has the right to be respected. Oh, and finally, we want to use examples that reflect a wide range of people, bodies, genders, orientations, abilities, cultures, values, because we know the world is a really, really big place, and it's our role as an educator to reflect this range of a diversity in a really beautiful way. Next slide.
Leah, I'm going to interject here and say, why don't, instead of doing this as a breakout session, why don't we ask folks to just spend a few minutes writing some ideas potentially in the chat box, because I want to make sure that we allow enough time for Alejandro and Xavier.
Yes, that sounds perfect.
Thanks.
So if people want to, thanks Mary, respond to the prompt on the screen. So what strategies do you use to foster inclusivity? And start sharing them. And if anybody does want to share their voice, they can. Give everybody a minute to percolate, collect their thoughts, type into the Zoom group chat.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Yes, so the question is, what strategies do you use to foster inclusivity?
So hi, good morning. I apologize. My name is Troy Cruz. So we come from the island of Guam. So our pretty much the people in our classrooms are very diverse. So they come from different neighboring islands, and then of course we do have some bigger countries such as Philippines, Japan, and other countries of that sort. So just the fact that we can include everybody, saying that we're all connected through the sea, through our waters, we kind of use that philosophy and allows the kids to kind of just share with each other and ask how do you say like a welcoming in your language or something like that.
I love it. It's beautiful that we're all connected through the water. That's a great, right? And to share people's identities and share their diversity, that's just a wonderful way to create inclusivity, right? Absolutely. And I see other people are joining or writing things in the chat as well. And also, Troy, thank you everybody from Guam. I feel like it's really late there or really early. It's one of those two things.
Yeah, it is currently 6 a.m. in the morning.
It's well, thank you for joining us today. All right, I'm trying to scroll up to make sure I can see. Right, take the time to learn youth interests and cultures. Yes, normalizing sexual orientations, gender identities and experiences. Absolutely. Acknowledging tribal identities.
And so another thing that I try to do is actually celebrate my own identity. And by celebrating my own identity, they begin to celebrate theirs. Because, I'm not American Indian. So I was born in New Zealand, but by speaking in my native language, it shows that I value that which I am, and I hope that they would do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Modeling is a really wonderful way to send that message to our young people. If I celebrate and love myself, we're teaching others that it's okay and encouraged to celebrate and love their own selves, right? And the diversity that that brings. I mean, I do want to notice, we got a private chat that LGBT inclusivity is it not just for the LGBTQ population? And oftentimes I want to say, yes, when we do talk about inclusivity, we often hear those things are linked and they're crucially important. So I love that inclusivity and LGBTQ plus populations are linked in your mind. And for this particular case, we were thinking more broadly. So specifically, we should be having a representation for all sexual orientations and gender identities, and broadening that to think about just the different cultural and ethnic backgrounds that you'll be that you'll see and share with the young people with you work. So we're just expanding the concept. But thank you. So thank you for pointing that out. I love it.
Could I say that we do, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to move us along because I want to, I really want to stop talking and hand it over to Alejandra. So if we can just save any more questions until our Q&A at the end, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So the next slide is going to say questions, but again, I ask you to say your question. So we're just going to keep moving. Okay. So, and then this is our last, oh, we get to say my wellness moment. You know how I love my quotes, Mary. Okay. So this is our last wellness moment. So we have on the slide here, and what I will leave you with are just two of my favorite quotes. The first is from Brene Brown. So we went like a clinical social worker, and her quote is, "Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness." Like, I love that. I'm all about being vulnerable, since I'm talking about talking to myself in front of like 100 people. And then my second super favorite quote is actually from Pippi Longstocking. And it is, "I am the sea and nobody owns me." So on that quote, I will hand it over to Alejandra and Xavier to share all the wonderful things they're doing with you.
I do unmute myself. This is the trouble of virtual implementation. It's a struggle, right? So as we introduced ourselves, we are Alejandra and Xavier from Community Action Commission, and we were here to spotlight some of our tricks and tips and suggestions from our experience of implementing virtually for youth in our county. Next slide. So we'll first start with our implementation design. The first thing that we suggest is for other agencies considering a virtual platform is to choose a way of delivering your content, whether it be a live where you teach small groups, or asynchronous learning where students see a pre-recorded video or format and then ask questions and they pace themselves as, for example, either 10 days or 9 days, depending on the module length, and then if you're going to give them more time. The next thing to choose from that is your platform use, right? So it might be Google Classroom or Blackboard, Canvas, or it might be a mix where you add from Google Classroom to Zoom. And then if you're doing live implementation, we always recommend Kahoot, Padlet, Quiz. Those are great other platforms to interact with youth. And lastly, we got to give a shout out to our team, Alex and Bianca, who are also on the call, because they helped us and we used everybody's strengths to put this together. So definitely look at what people can create in your group and use those strengths to the advantage of the curricula.
Awesome. So the next is kind of knowing your audience and kind of being on there for your audience, right? As you all know, we all work with so many different diverse populations. Here in our county, we work with over 30 different sites. So first we had to try to figure out which curriculum we wanted to use and how we wanted to present it to our youth, right? And so in doing so, we not only work with our internal team, one thing that we found that very helpful was that our contractor and our curriculum developer, we'll have meetings, and we were able to work with other prep agencies, right? And so one thing that helped us out is we got to see what they were doing, what we were doing, and we got ideas from them, right? And so some of the things that we found very helpful, again, was to use like color palettes for PowerPoint, providing GIFs or memes for some of the PowerPoint presentations. You want to try to make it most engaging as possible for the youth. Things that we also saw that youth might need in some of our virtual implementation pilot groups were like headsets, parent guardian information, or even using like youth resources such as family pack links and so forth. Next slide.
So the next thing we did is we got to work. So we created all our PowerPoints and materials on a virtual platform. Even our workbooks, we transferred all that information onto a Word document or a PDF so that youth can enter that information. Then we submitted our materials to our grantee, which in our case is MCAH and ETR for our curriculum developer. Then we did tons and tons of teachbacks. I can't remember how many teachbacks we did. And teachbacks are basically we practiced how to deliver delivering the curriculum, like if we were teaching it to a live in a live virtual setting. We had somebody switching the slides, we had somebody answering questions, and other staff while they were presenting was in the chat box messaging each other. And so that really helped us create like a good sense of confidence when we came up with a curricula. And then this is a great time to polish your curricula. If you see that some memes or GIFs or images are distracting from the concept and the content of your curricula, so take those out, swap them out. There's no harm, no foul, right? And then lastly, we suggest that you engage your funder and your curriculum developer for added feedback. So we did one last round before we did our pilot group with our funder, with MCAH and ETR, so that we would be able to present.
So cool. So now we go into kind of outreaching. Once you develop a curriculum that you want to try to present to some sites, you know, we suggest that you try to present to the sites that you have maybe the most relationship with, or how the more developed relationship over the years, or maybe for some time before COVID came through. Also practicing your sales pitch was very helpful of how you wanted to present to them, right? Because we're all in this new world. That's something that they may be at work, or they're not, or they're working from home, and how they might be wanting to reach out to their youth. One thing that we found that helpful, which one of our health educators provided for us, was a referral process where we will send to some of our CBOs, and then they will sign up some youth and provide that warm handout to us. During our 5 implementation groups that we had over the summer, you know, we always suggested not to have more than 7 youth, because we knew that would take the intention of the curriculum when we have more than 7 youth in a sense of trying to present to them. Cool. So once you have the youth ready and they might be on board to be part of the cohort, one of the things that we suggested was to reach out to each youth individually and share out how the process might work for them. During this time in the summer, we found out that a lot of our youth are sleeping way at night and waking up like until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, right? And so we found that difficult. Some youth would, you know, wake up earlier, some youth will wake up later. And so you want to try to do like kind of like Zoom poll with them and just trying to figure out what might work best for them, right? And so we found it like groups usually helped us out about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. They're alert, they're awake. You know, we found that groups that were in the afternoons, like at 3 or 4, they're a little bit more harder because they're already kind of tired, dying off. So always reach out to them in the beginning to see what time might work for them. Another thing that was helpful for us was that we will set up a logistics day with them. Again, we always suggest to try to do some small pilot groups before you go into the school districts, because they are doing different types of logistics with different schools in their district, right? So the pilot groups really helped us out because we got to see what kind of worked for the youth and what didn't. And here's a little bit of our implementation sample of our curriculum. We were able to use the Making Proud Choices curriculum, California edition, developed by our ETR developer. And again, we did a lot of teachbacks with not within our own team, but also with our developer as well, to make sure that we were still abiding by their curriculum fidelity.
And so some musts have recommendations that we include and that we talk about with other agencies is team introductions, agency introductions, you know, the curricula introduction. Our orientation consists of learning the platform, where the resource is, when to log on, how to mute yourself, how to unmute yourself, how to show, you know, your face, all that stuff. And then our virtual agreements with our youth. And then if you're doing a live implementation, we definitely want to do a youth introduction where you talk like a talking circle, where you have youth give us information about them so we can learn more about them. Obviously, you want to have their content. In virtual resources, we created QR codes for almost everything that we have so that it was easy and accessible to the youth. And lastly, I know that Lia and Amanda talked a little bit about this as parental or caregiving materials. So this was really strong thing that we needed to incorporate in all our materials. This is some of our virtual agreements, and a shout out to Kern County who gave us this gift because we like it. So if you're working with the school district or like if you're part of a Native American community, use the already established known rules in your groups. And then we also like to highlight that if there are younger people in the home, that people use headsets as they are very important, and we want to make sure that everything that is being said is developmentally appropriate for the age groups that are taking in the content. The other thing that we also highlight is that the students shouldn't be recording or screenshotting our materials as they are subject to copyright law. And lastly, we want to see their beautiful and handsome faces, right? And for the first cohort, we just saw like foreheads because the youth were very uncomfortable. And then we presented it in a different style. We said, you know, part of being a professional is being able to public speak and to show your face when you're either on a Zoom call or presenting yourself in a community. So this is a chance for you to practice that in a safe space. So we would encourage you with other tie-ins to something that they might have realistically or a need that they're experiencing through. Next slide. So this is our confidential question box. Here's our QR code, and we ask students not to provide names. We do encourage you to, if you're affiliated with the school district or you are a collaboration with the school district or have an MOU, to talk to the school board or the district or the principal, whoever you need to contact, about making sure that if a student types a question that triggers mandated reporting laws, that you know and follow the procedures that need to be followed. Also, we include a note to use anatomically correct language like elbow, nose, right? We don't want to hear slang for different body parts. We want to make sure that everything is anatomically correct. And then for our virtual live settings, we actually blocked student conversation between them, but we did not block conversation to us or to the whole group, so they can actually message us privately. And one of the things that we noticed is that when students started asking questions, we really honored the confidentiality of them. And so we said, oh, this question came up, and then this would be the response for it. So we wouldn't out students' names for asking questions. And we actually stated in our before we introduced this and put it to use, we told students that we've heard almost every question in the book, and so we wouldn't be shocked to hear something new. So it was very, very informative, and very youth really like that option. Next slide. And this is like the sample of our QR of our question box. It's a just a Google form, and so they can submit as many questions as they want. For school districts, we do encourage you add the teacher's name and period, so that if you are teaching at multiple sessions, that you can reach back to the teacher to have that question responded in a live setting, or have the teacher email the student, whatever needs to happen to get that information across.
So one of the most things that we found it very helpful as well was that in every module, in our curriculum, we have 9 modules to do a talking circle in the beginning, as well as a check-in call. Again, this is really new to all the students doing live virtual implementation, so it could be very awkward, right? And so some of the things that made this helpful for us, like kind of checking in to see how their day was going, right? To see if they've already ate lunch, or maybe if they needed some extra resources or where we can try to provide for them. Also, kind of getting to know them more and more. What we found out was that acknowledgement kept them kind of going and coming to every group, because as we saw some of the respondents said earlier, was that there might be a lack of structure, right? Where parents are working consistently, they're taking care of their siblings. So where is that me time for? Where are they being acknowledged, right? And so during this time, I think that made it very helpful, where we had a lot of youth continue to want to participate because we provided that acknowledgement in the beginning. And so not only did we do it in the beginning to kind of get to know them, but also on every day we did implementation. We found it helpful that, implementation time does not go beyond maybe 45 minutes to an hour, just because we know that their attention rate can get back lower, right? So again, that helped us.
And one thing to mention about the talking circle is that we, depending on your demographics, you might include pronouns or non-pronouns during your talking circle, and that's just because of the safety of the students. We have some cohorts that are, for example, our juvenile hall students or our youth on probation. If we out a student accidentally, we don't want to do that. So depending on the situation, we include pronouns or non-pronouns. For parent resources, we did a curriculum outline with description, and that really has all the links to our MCAH. It has it to our curriculum developer. It also has our URL links to our YouTube videos that we use. We use MEES.org, which has great animated videos for teens and parents as a resource. So we have brief descriptions of everything that we put together virtually. We also have an virtual implementation consent form that we have parents fill out. We have a parent question box, which is actually kind of cool. Parents could submit questions. We haven't had a parent submit a question yet, so because we do a parent night usually before, but we're looking into having a pre-recorded Spanish. We're actually recording, we're in the midst of recording a English and Spanish parent night. So because we primarily work with bilingual parents, or only monolingual Spanish or monolingual English. So this will be a good way to get that information across to parents in their own native language. And lastly, we have a parent notification letter that aligns with the school district that we're working with. And a shout out to Poster My Wall has great templates for all these forms that you can create, like posters, flyers, anything like that. Our parent notification letter actually has an image of students and they kind of move. And so then all the information is right on the bottom and it's really accessible. And that's it for us.
And we can open it up to questions for any of our presenters. I know we're running a little low on time, but we're happy to take any questions that you guys have if you want to unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat box. And yeah, if you guys want to. And Leah, I can't, or Amanda, or if you guys are able to monitor the chat box since I can't see it.
We're getting lots of thank yous. Appreciate the tips. If others have tips to share, please plop those in the chat box. Mary, remind us, I think we'll be collecting and sending out a follow-up to this, maybe some resources and tips.
Exactly, yeah, so I can go through the last few slides here really quickly while you guys are putting any questions in the chat box. But as Lisa mentioned, we will be sending a thank you email afterwards with some resources. And then we also just have some resources to links, particularly things on the exchange that you guys already have access to, but just wanted to point some things out that may help you tailor your curriculum to be a little bit more inclusive or focus on particular populations that you may not be addressing. And also just wanted to let you guys know that you can reach out directly to apptta@rti.org. That email is on the screen if you'd like one-on-one assistance, but you can also reach out to your project officers if you have specific prep program administration questions. And then also just a quick promo or kind of plug for our survey. And we can put this, I guess Shane or Cameron, if you don't mind putting that link in the chat box. We'd love for you guys to provide some feedback on your experience today. We're always interested to hear from grantees so that we can improve the webinar trainings and you know, provide you guys with topics that you're interested in or topics that you'd love to learn more about.
Can you tell us when the slides will be available?
I can't give you an exact date, but they will definitely be available on the exchange website, probably in the next few weeks. They should be available, if not sooner.
Can you
and
put
it'll be the slides and the recording.
Okay, can you put that exchange link in the chat as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Lisa, are you okay putting
that?
Yeah,
I can grab it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions about the webinar or other things?
Yeah, it looked like Carla had asked about engagement. And so, Carla, do you mean like apps like Kahoot, Mentimeter, Padlet, Pear Deck? Or were you thinking like adaptations to teaching training strategies?
Yeah, I think more so like tools that can be used. Like I've found games like Scrabble and different things like that, but still looking, since I meet with the kids so regularly, just not to overuse the few resources that I have. So just trying to tap into that. And then there are nights that we have our younger kids involved, because I mainly work with teens, but we have a mentoring group. So we try to bring them on and bring the little ones on with them. And it's really hard to find anything for the little ones. So just looking for more resources, because I feel like I'm overusing the few that I have.
That you have. Yeah, so Alejandra, you just pulled up these.
Yeah, so MEES.org has some great resources for teens, and it actually has a parent category and a junior category, so it's actually designed for little ones. And then bedsitter.org has all the information on like birth control and all that good stuff. So and then MEES.org does not only depression, but it talks about sex trafficking and, you know, all these other great topics that are really important. And so I would check them out first.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think also Sex Etc. has some great stuff on it as well, like different games and stuff. So I would check out Sex Etc. Or Advocates for Youth has some great stuff too.
And it's Sex Etc., right?
Yes.
Okay.
Etc. Yeah. Sex etc.
And I typed in there and reminding all of you and encouraging you all on the exchange also, you all have access to the comment wall, and we encourage you as grantees to use that to share information, post information, ask ideas and share ideas among each other, your peers. It's getting some traction, and we want to promote more use of the comment wall as well.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, Love is Respect is a good website as well.
Well, I know we are a little bit over time, and I definitely want to respect everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys for joining and being super engaged in the chat box and being able to unmute yourselves. That's awesome. Definitely check out the exchange for upcoming events and resources that we have. And please do fill out the survey. We look forward to hearing your feedback. And definitely feel free to reach out to apptta@rti.org if you guys need additional support or have questions. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.